news broke that there'd been these two killings. And I mean, in the Costa del Sol, shootings are not that uncommon, especially organized crime shootings. But this is something different of a whole different level. Because when you get these shootings, they're not often British mafia or Irish. It's normally, it could be any kind of nationality. But this was rare because it was so public. It was on our doorstep.
Someone just got shot in the head for helping out.
And the initial kind of response was quite open. People were kind of excited by this in a weird way. It was something unusual. It was so off the charts. What happened? There's not a broad daylight execution, but out in the open public execution with like a very well trained hitman who had everything planned out, disappeared, and the police never found him. It was like something straight from a movie. So so we were speaking to people, talking to our contacts, working them, and in the early days, the response was good. People were talking to us, and then suddenly we found, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, that everyone just shut up shop and stopped talking, stopped replying to text messages, or stopped answering the phone, or gave us very terse responses. And it's one of those things where you never really will know what happened if people just thought to themselves, maybe I should keep my mouth shut, or if it was intimated to them that it would be in their interest to keep their mouth shut. So things definitely locked down after about 5 days in sort of Fuengirola in this area. And it became a lot harder to report on what happened.
Yeah, there have been shootings on this coast. It's not a common occurrence, but it's not that rare either, unfortunately. But this was different in that it happened in such a packed area, right next to the beach. At the end of the Champions League final, there were families enjoying, a nighttime stroll. People obviously having a beer on the terrace of the pub where it happened after the football finished. Very nearby, people finishing up their dinners on tables at beach bars who, when this started unfolding, were forced to run for cover, fearing for their lives, obviously. I mean, there was horror. People were going about their daily lives and they just weren't expecting something like this to happen. There were some demonstrations afterwards led by or involving, I think, one of the political parties who wanted the government to get a grip on the mafias that are behind these sort of incidents.
This one stands alone for the brazen kind of bold, almost chutzpah, the way they did it, sending a message. They could have done it, I suppose, in different ways. I mean, I understand that they've been trying to kill Eddie Lyons Jr. for a long time, and he'd been shot before on other occasions. So maybe the only way they could do it was this kind of spectacular open public shooting. But you get the feeling that it was also inclined or designed to drive a message. But I mean, in hindsight, it probably wasn't that wise because it's brought all the heat on both organizations. There's strangely more the Lyons than the Daniels, who are the clan responsible for the killings, supposedly, allegedly.
Well, the Costa del crime tag comes from, historically, from a time when there was no extradition treaty between Spain and Britain, and UK criminals took advantage of that to come down here and live their lives in the sun. But obviously, in more recent years, it's become home to a lot of, multiple foreign mafias, the Mocro Mafia. As I say, sadly, people are fairly accustomed to hearing about shootings on this coast. But no. I mean, I think this has put the Scottish Mafia on the map, because they weren't so much on the map here. The Kinahans were. They were arrested in 2010, actually, in an operation called Operation Shovel. And but I don't think the Scottish Mafia per se had been on the map here.
It's definitely kind of a seminal moment, because things, in terms of, I mean, things are never quiet in the Costa del Sol in terms of crime, but in terms of UK crime and Irish crime, it had been very quiet since the Kinahans left 10 years ago. And so it came out of the blue a little bit. Like, the Lyons weren't really on our radar at all until this happened. And I think a lot of people were shocked to realize how deeply embedded it was into the area, the organized crime. Costa del Sol is a criminal's paradise. It's a playground for them. And I mean, it's one of those strange things. The Spanish people, I think, who live there, like the native people, they kind of can't really believe it. But at the same time, they're accustomed to it because it's been going on for years. And it's one of those things that stretches all the way into politics. A lot of the local politicians have been connected to this stuff at one time or another. Every mayor of Marbella has been to jail or gets charged with corruption. So it's something that the tentacles extend very deep. And there's always a backlash when these things happen, but nothing ever changes as far as I can see, and nothing nothing's likely to change in the future. From what I understand, it's not the center, the logistical center of crime. It's basically chosen by the high level operators in various different cartels and mafia groups, more as like a place to have their board meetings. You know, it's a place where they all can hang out together. Because a lot of these groups, they don't fight each other so much as they compete and they work together and they pool the resources. So Marbella isn't a place where you'll see drugs being trafficked. I mean, it does happen as well, but its primary purpose is that you can get the leaders of Italian mafia, Albanian mafia, South American cartels, French, British, Irish, any kind of nationality. Swedish is another one. They can all meet in one place, have a cocktail together, discuss business. That's mainly the role that Marbella plays in the whole criminal ecosphere.
We know of, obviously strong connections now between the Lyons gang and the Kinahans. And one of the people who seems to be central to that is a guy called Johnny Morrissey. What can you tell us about Johnny Morrissey and his current status?
Well, Johnny Morrissey, as you say, does, yeah. He's got a house nearby. He was arrested a while back now, and he's spent some time on remand in prison. He's on bail. He hasn't been formally indicted. There's no formal accusation in place. And the investigation into him and his wife and a third person who was arrested alongside him is ongoing. And I understand proving to be fairly complicated because it involves a number of jurisdictions, and it involves allegations like money laundering, which is when you've got alleged international money laundering, it's not an easy crime to pursue. We've got no date for trial, as I say, so it could be a while yet before we learn whether, as expected, he's indicted and then is put on trial.
Dubai has become the famous kind of bolt hole where all the top mafia dons hang out. They kind of, until recently, this has changed. They had some kind of protection, and they could operate their super cartels from there. And the Lions obviously have these connections to the Kinahans through Johnny Morrissey and who knows what else. You wouldn't put the Lions in the same league as the Kinahans, who are, from what we understand, are right at the top with the Mokra Mafia. They were contributing to these. When you get these 30-ton cocaine busts, no single mafia, I think, can afford to finance that much cocaine on its own. So they pull the resources. The Lions, these guys, famous for operating in Scotland and I think parts of England, and they not really known, I think, as big players in Spain itself. They just hang out in Spain. It's this is for at least for the UK and British mafia. This is more, they use Spain as a nice place to be, basically, like many Brits who go to Spain. So the Lions, I don't think they were as connected as some of the bigger mafias. The Spanish judicial system, the Spanish police are pretty good, but the Spanish judicial system makes a lot of even errors, like literal human errors, and they're very soft. There's a lot of, you can kill a person and get released on bail, so you never know. Sometimes the prosecutors make basic mistakes. So if you're held in remand up to 9 months without being charged or facing trial, you get released automatically, whatever you've done. So all these things can happen and do happen. And there's many stories of genuine gangsters walking away on technicalities. I would imagine, you'd think, given the profile of Stephen Lyons, that won't happen. Can't be sure. But yeah, I don't think he's looking at a life jail sentence. No, he'll be out sipping pina coladas, before he's 60.